you have to be very careful to not get seduced by the sexiness of business ownership on the outside, because it's definitely not all it's cracked up to be. You never get a break from the headaches that you deal with, the risks you take, the decisions you have to make. It's just a constant stream of them. Now, am I saying that in a negative way? No, because you galvanize your mindset to deal with it and understand that like that's the life that you asked for. Otherwise, you wash out, close the doors, and then go back to work for somebody else, where you can just leave all your stress at the door at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and go home, spend time with your family. There's nothing wrong with that. So you really have to just evaluate what you want to be getting into.
How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another episode of the Tactical Empire. I am Jeff Smith, and I'm back. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus. We have been traveling extensively in our RV and having some little disruption of our lives, if you will. So we are back on track, and I am here today and excited to drop some knowledge on you guys. We are actually in Albuquerque right now at the Hot Air Balloon Festival, and it's us boondocking with our RV with 53 other families that full-time RV. And so there's like 200 kids here. It's incredible. Our kids are having a ball, and we're right on a infield lot that's right across from where they take off. So the balloons fly like within 50 feet of us. It's pretty incredible. And we have the opportunity to crew them and do a ton of stuff with them. So it's been a fun experience for everybody. The families enjoyed it, obviously. Our kids are having the time of their life. They're going to be disappointed when we pick up roots and head west next week. But that said, I had the opportunity to sit as part of a business owners roundtable yesterday, and it brought up some really interesting topics with regards to business, right? One gentleman was speaking. He is an app developer. And he's an app developer and a heads down coder. And he was talking about starting his own business and what would go into it. And this is something that I hear from people all the way back to when I used to mentor and coach business owners in the gym space, right? They were tactically great at what they did and they enjoyed it. So it's not always the right decision to start a business. And that's kind of what I talked to him about, because he loves coding. He loves being heads down and building the apps. But he thinks that his next logical step is just naturally to start a business. And what I let him know, and what he had some questions about specifically, was that like he was going to lose that ability to not necessarily have his hand on the pulse with regard to the coding. He would still be able to be involved in that, certainly. But when you start a business, there's so many other things that go into it. Ultimately, when you start a business, you have to understand that your role shifts as the person that was effectively swinging the hammer originally to make the money. Now you have to level up. And really your role is three things, which I think are leadership, communication, and culture building. And culture building could be a lot of things. I mean, it's your team, but it's also like the brand that you're putting out and the quality of product and consistency that you're putting out. So you're in charge of managing all of that stuff. And if your specialty or your passion lies in swinging the hammer, then you may look at a different route than actually starting your own business, because we talk all the time. I talk all the time about building yourself a cage. In the gym space, a good analogy to it would be that like somebody is an exercise science guru, and they're very technically savvy and they enjoy pouring into their clients and their physiology. and then they decide that they should own a gym. Well, now their hats have extended tremendously to financial bookkeeper, uh, general manager, janitor, um, anything, quality control, right? You have all these other hats that you put on immediately, and no longer is your focus just simply coaching, or in this man's case, coding, right? He wants to build apps. So my recommendation to him was partner with somebody that has complementary skill sets, meaning like somebody that wants to do the business side of things, the culture side of things, and he could take on more of like a CTO role or chief technology officer role, to where he would be able to be a partner in the business, have shares of the company, obviously, and also have an integral role in it. But he would be able to spend his day to day doing what he likes to do, which is the tech side of things, right? And so you have to be very careful to not get seduced by the sexiness of business ownership on the outside, because it's definitely not all it's cracked up to be. You never get a break from the headaches that you deal with, the risks you take, the decisions you have to make. It's just a constant stream of them. Now, am I saying that in a negative way? No, because you galvanize your mindset to deal with it and understand that like that's the life that you asked for. Otherwise, you wash out, close the doors, and then go back to work for somebody else, where you can just leave all your stress at the door at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and go home, spend time with your family. There's nothing wrong with that. So you really have to just evaluate what you want to be getting into. And when I talk about the concept of building yourself a cage, I want you to think about what you're creating and then what it turns into in 2 years, or the possibility of what it could turn into in 2 years. I was talking to another gentleman who's part of the Tactical Empire Inner Circle, and he was sending me some messages about buying a yoga studio or a gym, right? And so we kind of went through the decision-making filter with regards to that too. Like, what's the worst case scenario? How's staffing going to be? Um, are you going to be able to dedicate any time to this? And how do you see your role playing out in the business, right? And so we went back and forth for a few hours and kind of talked about the pros and the cons of each different direction and what would probably be a better asset class for him to purchase. And so when you think about starting a business, it's not for everybody, um, especially if you don't want to spend most of your time dealing with people and their emotions and their, I mean, especially if you're in the service-based industry, right? Because then you're dealing with customers' emotions as well, right? And customers can be very fickle, but then you've got to manage your staff and team's emotions as well. So you really have to consider all of those things. It's not just a money game, and it's not just a freedom game, because you can go get the freedom of time that you desire and the freedom of location, whatever it is that we talk about all the time. You can get all those things and be able to operate in your zone of genius or spend time doing things that you're very passionate about. You just have to be very intentional with what you want, right? So that's why a lot of our concepts go back to, like, what do you truly want? Like, what is it, in fact, that you're looking for by trying to start this business? And that's what I talked to this gentleman about. Like, what is the appeal to starting a business for him? Why does he feel like he needs to as a app developer, right? Because there's ways to, especially in today's economy, with the ability to contract people to do all kinds of things, you can be a sole proprietorship and make a lot of money with your specialty and set your own hours, create your own boundaries, and kind of name your own price, like never before. You don't have to go to work for a big Fortune 50 company or something like that and sit in a cubicle all day. There's just a million options to how to do things. So you have to consider the price you're going to pay to be a quote unquote business owner. Because there's a ramp up period of time where you're wearing a lot of hats and you're not operating in your zone of genius. You're not doing the things that you're very passionate about. That's why, like, Dan Martell's book of Buy Back Your Time is so popular, because it kind of flips the concept of reinvesting in your business on its head. Because instead of reinvesting in marketing or ads to generate more sales and revenue, his concept is that you reinvest in your people in order to buy back your time so you can continue to level up as a business owner. And so I see that create a lot of trepidation and fear in people, because if you're going to go pay somebody $25 an hour or $50 an hour to do something, a lot of business owners don't know how they can get the ROI on that. So how do they spend their time making more than $50 an hour in order to make the equation make sense, right? So in the gym space, you could go coach that class and save yourself $25, but that's really a scarcity mindset, because your unwillingness to level up in how you're producing is what's holding your business back ultimately, because you're stepping over dollars to pick up nickels, right? Or whatever the saying is. And so when you think about that, there's a lot of things to consider, but business ownership is not for everyone. If you have a skill set like this gentleman does, app development, I mean, it's a unique skill set that a lot of startups are looking for and things like that. So the angles that you can take to get into business, you also need to be creative. So when you're thinking about, hey, I'm going to make this leap and I'm going to go into business, you have to be really intentional about what you're doing and the whys behind it. And then you have to swallow your pride and ego and understand what the underlying thoughts are behind it and the underlying motivations. Because the fact of the matter is, most people are great. They have the ability to be great entrepreneurs, meaning you can slot them in on a team and they can kill it with what they're doing. And I don't know if this is this guy's situation or not, but what I'm saying is that, like, a lot of times you have to consider everything that comes with it with regards to a pros and cons list, because you might be able to go make the money you want with the freedom you want and the time you want, and let somebody else deal with all the stresses of actually owning and running the business, right? So ultimately, what is your motivating factor behind trying to start a business? And that is one of the most important things I can impress on other people, because I've made that mistake in the past, and I think a lot of people do. And then what happens is they build themselves the cage that we're talking about, and it may not be for them. So don't take that decision lightly. Don't get swept up in like what everybody else is doing or what Instagram influencers are telling you is the way to go. There's a million ways to make a dollar, and you have the ability to design your life any way that you can possibly conceive it. And most people are just caught up in trying to survive with like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, especially in today's economy. Holy shit. Yeah. So like they don't have the ability to stretch and dream and conceive things that they could conceive that they could possibly accomplish. But it's important that you spend time dreaming and visualizing and going out there to determine like what the next steps of your life are. Well, where will you be in 3 years? Where does your family need to be located? Where do you want to be located? Do you live in the same place? Do you live in the same house? Do you live on the beach? Like all of those things, if you can conceive them in your mind, you can achieve them and make them happen. And so, but you have to work with intentionality, and you have to spend time actually going deep on where you want to be and what you want to be doing. Okay. So if it's a financial target you're trying to hit with opening a business, is there a different way to maybe get to that financial target? And ultimately, are you expanding in all areas with regards to your skill set and your ability to live a larger life? Because I mean, that's what the Tactical Empire is all about, is like living a larger life in all areas of life constantly with intentionality and not letting life just pass us by like Groundhog Day. Hope that helps, guys. Have a great week. Let's kick ass and make our lives better. Live a larger life. There you go.